Ain't gonna be no more killings.
No, Al. Not as long as everybody stays cool and does what they're told.
Yeah, let's just get this one over with. The Ewings have the usual awkward breakfast. Lucy's worried about gaining weight, Bobby's worried about Pam working all the time, and JR is worried about an impending visit from his in-laws, Sue Ellen's overbearing mother and Sue Ellen's sister Kristen. Yeah, I'm sure JR would want nothing to do with a little kid sister running around South Fork. Meanwhile, Sloppy Steve Ducey and a couple make us sit through a slideshow of the Ewings and their vehicles. I get enough death by PowerPoint in my professional life, thank you. Evil Maureen Stapleton says that everything will turn out okay as long as everyone does what they're told.
Ain't gonna be no more killings.
No, Al. Not as long as everybody stays cool and does what they're told.
The idea is to kidnap JR and hold him for ransom, but that plan goes awry when Bobby has a flat tire and borrows JR's car. The bumbling kidnappers nab Bobby and take him away to their super secret lair in another part of Gotham. This looks like Rita Briggs' apartment from Black Market Baby. We get some helpful graffiti that lets us know that punk rules and where the icer box is. The kidnappers call Cliff Barnes and send him to inform the Ewings. The kidnappers want $1.5 million to be delivered by Cliff. JR, of course, wants to handle things his way. He doesn't think Cliff can handle the situation. JR brings in the FBI, which is actually fairly reasonable in a situation like this. He also enlists Ray Krebbs to wrangle up some amateur snipers. That one is considerably more stupid. Cliff and Sue Ellen are happy to see each other, but JR rains on their parade.
Hi. Any news yet, Mr. Barnes?
No, not yet. Well, and I know your manners are impeccable, but there are some people there's just no need to be polite to.
The IMDb trivia section points out something fascinating that checks out on first blush. This episode is the first time that JR and Cliff Barnes actually exchange dialogue. The kidnappers spot the feds and get cold feet about the initial exchange. Bobby tries to escape and gets a lecture from one of the kidnappers on what it's like to be poor.
Have you ever scrubbed up people's dirt to make a living? I bet your wife's hands don't look like these.
What do you think, Junior? You think these hands have been soaking in ivory liquid, huh?
That's the fourth time this season someone has brought up the Ewing money.
You think there's nothing your money can't buy you?
The kidnapper tries to sexually assault Bobby before she's interrupted. That's icky. In fairness, 5 o'clock Shadow Bobby is the most irresistible Bobby. Cliff changes up the plan on the kidnappers, telling them he wants them to bring Bobby so he can make sure he's alive. Bobby assures them he'll make sure everything goes according to plan. Of course, JR and Jock still think that they can retrieve Bobby and capture the kidnappers, along with Ray's makeshift posse. Cliff hits the meeting place and the trade goes off without a hitch. But Ray and JR open fire anyway, killing the 2 male kidnappers. Bobby saves Cliff from getting shot, but JR says they were both safe all along. And we're out. Along with Runaway, this is one of the weakest episodes of the season. The kidnappers are silly stock characters, their plan is stupid. The narrative just doesn't have any forward momentum. It's scene after scene of the same thing. Cliff and JR don't trust each other, Pam has to beg the Ewings not to do anything stupid. Repeat as needed. The episode was written by Camille Marchetta, one of the popular staff writers on the show. And it feels like a spec script someone had laying around and decided to use in a panic. Even the season's overarching motif of the lack of money being the root of all evil is wedged in here awkwardly. I jokingly referred to the female kidnapper as Evil Maureen Stapleton, which wound up being somewhat ironic because the actress who played her, Kelly Jean Peters, played the role of Gloria in the original pilot of All in the Family. That's about as fascinating as I can make this episode. Most of the events here are never followed up on outside of a few throwaway lines. Everyone just forgets that Bobby was kidnapped. He doesn't develop PTSD or anything, despite Patrick Duffy's game performance as sweaty and wide-eyed. Like, at least Bobby looks scared here. Like Fallen Idol before it, chalk this one up to self-contained season padding and let's move on.